we will wait for all links to pop up and stuff.
You're on Facebook.
Oh, cool. Wow. Very good. Very good. You can see Jack and Trace with us as well now. Welcome. All right, Joe. No worries.
Will you be live in Discord as well?
I can do. I tried to do the PowerPoint a second ago, and it just did not want to cooperate. But I will try it again. No, it's giving me the same like weird screen. Oh, hang on. Let me try this. Bye, Joe. Does that work, Andrew, on Discord? Yeah. Cool. For some reason, if I try and share like PowerPoint, it just gives me just like a blank window. But if I share the slideshow, it's fine.
I think it happens because you need to share the full screen version of PowerPoint rather than PowerPoint edition.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Okay. So everybody who's here, welcome back. So given that since everybody's back in school and stuff now, we're just gonna hang around here for a few minutes just to make sure everybody's got time to join in. So I'll kind of fill you all in on what we're going to be doing today and things like that. And then essentially we'll get started in a couple of minutes once once everybody's had a chance to join. So as I said, welcome back to the next sort of Techno Club. So what we're going to be doing is kind of carrying on with picking up from where we left off last week. So if you haven't managed to do the activities from last week that we were doing, it's okay, because really we're just kind of building on that this week, and it's fine, because today is also going to be a little bit about designing your website. So for those of you who don't know, the next few weeks are going to be focused on web design, so that we can do a little bit of HTML, a little bit of CSS, and then we're going to progress eventually into JavaScript as well to kind of build up a nice website. So the plan today is we're going to extend our HTML knowledge a little bit. We're going to add in a few bits and pieces, and then what we're going to do after that is as well today, is we're going to be actually designing that website so that we have a bit more of a clear idea as to how we actually want to lay our website out. So that's going to be the plan for today, and then, so like I said, we'll just give everybody a few more minutes just to make sure everybody can join in, and then we'll make a start on things. How's everybody? I hope everybody's keeping well. Has everybody had a good week at school so far? Oh, right, okay.
Actually, I had to get a COVID test earlier today. Don't think that I have it, but still
Better to be safe than sorry.
Yeah.
Well, I hope it comes back negative.
Yeah. Me too. Yeah. Suppose so.
First, I can see you've had a fun day at school. That's pretty good. Okay. Yeah, so like I said, we'll just give everybody another couple of minutes, and then we'll make a start then. I know everybody's obviously still going to be moving backwards and forwards trying to get home from school and that, so we'll start at about 10 past. You had a P last lesson. Oh no. Yeah, P last lesson is I can imagine you're pretty tired out after that. Yeah, the same on Monday. First, I can imagine. Yeah, yeah. I was never very good at things like cross country and stuff. Uh, I was never. I was never very good at that. Well, I'm glad you're all having a good. That you've all kind of settled back in after the summer and things. I know I can imagine there's probably been quite a lot of change to your structures and things now. So and the way that school is. So I'm glad that you've all kind of settled back. I'm glad that you've all settled back and that it's all going well for you.
Yeah, I've managed to settle in.
That's good. That's good. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think everybody's here who's going to join in today. So we might as well get started on things now. So remember, just a reminder for everybody who's on, make sure that if you are sort of if you do want to say something, you're free to unmute your mics. But just because of different bits of feedback and things like that, it's best if you just kind of keep your mics muted until if I've got any questions or anything, or if you want to say something, then feel free to unmute. But just keep yourselves muted until then, just to kind of so that none of us get any of the. Okay, lovely. So, we'll start off today then with a bit of a recap on last week. So, for those of you who weren't here last week, this will be a good chance for you to learn a few things. So, I've got a couple of questions. Feel free to unmute if you want to answer them, or if you don't want to talk, you're welcome to put it in the chat as well. So the first thing that we're going to start off with is, does anybody know what the purpose of the head section of a HTML document is? Can anybody tell me what goes in the head of a HTML document? Like I said, feel free to put your answers in chat.
Is it like that, like line at the top of the screen when there's like a bunch of like links to different sections of the website?
Oh, you're close. You're close. That would go in your header. So slightly different. But you were really close. Really, really close.
Like where the title goes?
Yeah, almost. It does include the title. We'll see what everybody else has to say as well. See if anybody else has anything to add to what you said. Information such as title, yeah, and link to style sheet, absolutely, Chris, you got that one spot on. The title and the link, yeah, absolutely. So, the content of the, so all three of you got that right, well done. So the content of the head is essentially kind of like the information about the page. Yeah, Google Fonts as well, Jack, absolutely. So it's kind of like the information about the web page. That doesn't necessarily it's not displayed on the actual website or on the actual web page. It's just a part of the it's just information about the page and linking style sheets and things like that. So well done. Does anybody know what the H1 tag is and how many should each page contain?
Is it the largest heading tag?
Yeah, absolutely, it is. Do you know how many should be included on each page?
1.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you know why it's only one?
Because it's for like the main title of the website.
Yeah, absolutely. Does anybody else have anything to add to that? Why there's only one H1? Yeah, Chris has got it spot on. So it's really good to have only one H1 per page so that you can have the best kind of search engine optimization, so that you can make sure that Google can push you right up to the top of the search results if someone searched for your website. Absolutely. So the last question that we've got today is, what are UL and OL tags used for, and what's the difference between them? Does anybody know what are they and what makes them different from each other?
I don't know.
That's okay. UL is a list. Yeah, absolutely.
Do you know what kind of list it is? We have a UL and an OL. What's the difference between them?
Anybody know? Can see Jack is typing, so we'll wait and see if Jack knows. Okay, that's all right, Jack. So, the main difference is a UL is an unordered list, and an OL is an ordered list. So, if you want things in a particular order, you will have, say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc., etc. But an unordered list, it means that things can be in any order. So that's the difference between those two. Okay. So there you go. So Andrew's popped that in the chat now, so that you can see the difference. So a UL is more like bullet points, and an OL is more like is a numbered list. So well done. Okay.
Is it okay? Oh,
What was that? Sorry.
is it okay if I ask what UL and OL are used for?
Yeah, so they're used for listing things. So if you wanted to make a bit of a list, say,
List of things you want for Christmas as an example.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so that might be, so for an example, if we said a list of things you want for Christmas, if you wanted the thing, if it didn't matter, what order things came in, you could use a UL, because that would be like bullet points. But say you wanted to order your list in terms of the thing that you wanted the most through to the thing that you least were sort of bothered about having, you could use an OL, because you could use it as a numbered list or an ordered list. So yeah, that's the kind of what you would use them for, that sort of thing. And we'll be looking at examples of where we can use lists in a few, probably be next week. We'll look at an example of a different way that we can use lists as well when we start looking at CSS. Okay, so well done.
Do they actually appear as bullet points and numbered list, or are you just using that to explain them? Just wondering. Sorry.
What was that? Sorry.
Do UL appear as bullet points?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So yeah, that's fine. Okay. So that was great. So well done, everybody. I think we've all kind of got a pretty. It seems as if everybody has remembered what they learnt last week and or already knew anyway, which is pretty good. So if you all want to pop yourselves back on mute for now, and then we'll carry on. So what we're going to do in this next part is it's going to be a bit of a chance for you to build up what we're going to call a project file. Okay, now this isn't going to be done on the computer. You can do this on, well, you can do it on the computer if you want, or you can do it on a pen and paper. It's entirely up to you. But just quickly, you don't have to spend a lot of time or a lot of detail on it. But what we would like you to do is kind of give a little bit, and I'll show you an example in a second. Just show a brief kind of design or layout, or you can even make it as a list if you wanted to, of what you want to include on your website. Okay, so you could do something like sketch it out on a little bit of paper. You could use a Word document, okay, to kind of structure it, but just kind of, or you could even use Notepad if you wanted to, okay, but just, you can include, say, for an example, you could say that you wanted to include a picture in one part of the website, or you want there to be a navigation bar on one part of the website. So just quickly, you can either draw it out, you can just list it out. It's entirely up to you how you do it. But just so that you've got an idea of what you would like your website to look like, or your web page to look like, sketch out or list, or make a list of what you want to actually include. And whilst you're doing that, have a think about what you want to actually include, what your website, what you want your website to be about. So I know last week we mentioned that we were thinking about doing it on Wales. So of course I used the Visit Wales web page as an example. So you might want to do your website on a particular part of Wales, or you might want to do your website on maybe a Welsh castle, or you could do your website on something, on a different topic. But start having a think about what you want to have your website look like and what you want to include on that website. Okay, so some examples. What's this, Jack? I think you can make virtual. Yeah, exactly. So if you have access to Hub, which I think all of you should do, and you have and you can access Office on there, then yeah, you could do a virtual notebook. That's absolutely fine. That would be amazing. So just some examples that you should see on the screen now. I know it's a bit fuzzy because it's kind of like a scan, but this is with my really bad handwriting. This is something that I did for my a sketch that I did for a website that I was doing for my undergrad at Bang University. So I sketched out sort of how I wanted my website to look, how I wanted my images to kind of be structured, how I wanted to sort of where I wanted my nav bar, how I wanted to structure my headings. Okay, so it's just a bit of a rough sketch of how I wanted to structure one of the pages on my website. So that's one way that you could do it. Another way that you could do it is I've got an example here of it's a few of these sections from the Visit Wales website. Okay, but what I've got there is just a couple of text boxes, and I've said, right, this is where I want to position my nav bar, this is where I want to position some of the images, and I've also then structured or included the tags that I'm going to use in order to make that work. Now, you don't have to go as far as including the tags, because there's some of these that some of you might be unfamiliar with, but if you wanted to include some of the tags that you're going to use, then you can do. So those are just two ways that you could do it. As I said, another way that you could do it is you could just make a bullet pointed list. You could say, I want to include headers. Headings. I want to include a list. I want to include some pictures. And you could just make a quick list of what you want to include on your website. So it's entirely up to you how you do it. But we're just going to spend 2 or 3 minutes just building up a little bit of an idea as to what as to how you want what you want to include on the. We'll go with, for this example, we'll say your home page. Okay. So that's going to be your first task for today. Like I said, I know that we all want to be mainly on the computer, so we won't spend too much time on it. But it's always really useful to have a plan as to how you want to have your website look, so that when you actually are designing it, you don't have to think too much about the design, because you know that you've already got a rough idea from your sketches or your lists of how you want it to look. So I'll leave everybody do that for a couple minutes now, and then we'll carry on in a couple of minutes. Has anybody got any questions so far?
I was just going to add there, Dan, anyway. There's a film based on Facebook and how they developed the original start of it. And what they used is a whiteboard, notes, and stuck everything on a whiteboard, which gave them kind of an idea of the layout of the page, how things would link together. So everyone has a different way of doing it. Maybe not to do it digitally, but just it'll give you a basic understanding of how your website's going to look and work. So when you come to develop it, you know exactly where things are going to go, see how it works, how things interconnect.
Yeah, absolutely. I was hoping to be able to find. I did try looking for an example from that film to show you. I was going to try and find a picture of them planning Facebook, but unfortunately I couldn't come across one on Google that I could actually use to kind of demonstrate that to you. But yeah, it should be.
I was just looking then as well. I couldn't find one either.
No, there's sadly there were no pictures of them planning, but yeah, as Andrew was saying, so Facebook, they were just using a whiteboard and post-it notes to design their website, and now look at how big Facebook has become, and in terms of it kind of as a platform. It started off with a whiteboard and some post-its, and now it's huge. So you can see how just designing something really simply can end up being something really, really big. So spend another 2 minutes or so on that, and then we'll carry on.
If you are creating it digitally, share your creations in the chat as well, so we can kind of get an idea of what you're thinking about when you're done. I don't know if Dan mentioned as well, but what kind of focus it on Wales specifically as well. We want to build a website around the topic of Wales. It might be castles, the hills, places you can see the history. Try and keep that area of focus when you build a website. It would be quite nice for us.
Yeah, if you can try and stick it to talking about Wales itself. It doesn't have to, it could be on Wales in general. It could be on, as I said, a specific castle in Wales. It could be on maybe a specific village. It could be on the history of a village. It could be, it could be anything that you'd like to talk about. You can do that. So just build it up around the theme of Wales if you can. Okay. Does anybody want any more time on the design? I know we haven't spent much time on it, but if anybody else, if everybody's happy to move on, then we'll carry on to going back to CodePen so that we can actually get cracking with some.
Sorry, it's just that I was trying to find a way to actually do it.
Mhm.
I haven't really had much time to design and decide what I want to do, so I really felt like
We'll give you 5 or 10 more minutes, that's okay, so it gives you more time to think about the design of the website. We're not here to rush you, we're trying to help you develop it. So
Yeah.
time at some point, and me and Dan can just explore how it works.
Yeah, that sounds good. Like you said, take your time. We're not, we've got all the time in the world to work on these sorts of things. So if anybody does feel like we're moving too quickly, just tell us, because, as you said, these sessions are all for you. So take your time. We'll work through it together, and we'll work at your pace. So take your time, spend as much time as you need doing it, and we'll all move on together.
Probably realizing the world of work, there's a lot of web platforms now, like WordPress, Squarespace, they're all platforms that help you develop sites. But having that background knowledge about HTML and CSS and JavaScript will help you develop them further. It's just basic drag and drop websites that do have customization there, so you can create custom websites. A lot of these templates automatically create full websites that work different for all browsers. When you go on a mobile device, the templates are created so they do shrink down. So there are benefits of using platforms like that, but we want to from scratch so you have basic understanding of HTML and CSS and JavaScript. Then grow up and use these platforms.
Absolutely.
I'm still looking for this scene.
How are you? How's it going, Caleb?
it's going.
Yeah. That's good. What? So have you picked a platform or that you're going to use
What
to?
I'm thinking about doing is I'm thinking about doing it about HTML.
Mhm. That's pretty. That's good. Yeah, like I said, just take your time. We're here to help. So you work at. We'll all work at the same pace. Don't worry. Let's see. See, Jack's got a photograph just come up. Like it, Jack? Yeah, that's pretty good. Like it. That's really cool. What did you use to design that, Jack? Was it on Hub? Oh, Word. Oh, nice. That's good. That's good.
Since we've got a bit more time, maybe think about either what the other pages might look like to put on that page, and maybe what will the headings be, what kind of content will be in the about section.
Jack, boxes and a nice looking custom font. Good. Good. Yep. That's good. Yeah, this is things are starting to look good now. Uh, so Chris, do you mean like a sidebar so that you've got kind of like links to other pages, so to speak? So you've got like widgets and stuff. Yeah, so one thing that we're going to be doing probably next week, because like I said, this week is mainly about the design and just covering a couple of bits, just a couple more bits of HTML. So when we start looking at CSS from next week, we'll start looking at kind of um, like a nav, what they call a nav bar. So what we'll be doing is we'll be incorporating kind of like a menu into our website, and then where you position that on your website is then up to you. So you could have it running like a main menu that runs along the top of your screen, or you could have it as a sidebar on the left as well. Yeah. So we will be looking at that sort of thing um, in the next over the next kind of couple of weeks when we start looking at CSS.
Never mind.
That's okay. Are we doing the same thing next week? Okay, so next week, what we're going to be doing is so the next few weeks now are going to probably be looking at web design. We might do something slightly different during the MSpark session. So we're just kind of we're kind of seeing which will be the last Wednesday of the month. So we're just having a think. So we'll either be doing something for M's, something different, or we'll be just doing web design kind of every week. But what we're going to be doing mainly is building up a website now over the next few weeks. That's going to be the main focus of the sessions. Chris. So that's it, Chris. You can make it kind of look something similar to that. Definitely, that'll be something that we'll be looking at, kind of more over the next kind of couple of weeks. Is how you can kind of reposition things to kind of be on different parts of the page. Let's have a look at this, Jack. That you've sent over. I'll just open it up on my Mac. Yeah. That's fine. I trust you. Yeah. That's pretty good, Jack. Well done. It's pretty good. Okay.
So, Jack, when you talk about the hamburger menu, when you
Yeah.
will there be a hamburger menu, or will the menu be laid out? And when you shrink down to an iPad or a small device like a phone, the menu will shrink into a hamburger. Do we think we're all going to be ready in a couple of minutes to move on to the next part of the session?
So you've got a hamburger menu on the top left. Okay. So, okay. Yeah, I think I see what you mean.
What platform are you using there, Jack, to build that website?
GitHub. I like it. Oh, this is fab, Jack. Yeah, really well done. Yeah, that's fantastic, Jack. Well done. Well done. Yeah, that's amazing, Jack. Really, really like that. Okay. Are we all happy to carry on now then to going back to our websites from last week? Or does anybody want to spend a bit more time on the design? Okay. So if we just carry on now then to doing a bit of if we head back to the websites that we designed last week, um, if any of you do want to spend a bit more time on the design, just let me know in the chat or on the voice channel, and we'll come back. We can kind of take a break from it for a bit, but we're not going to really be adding a lot this week to our website from last week. So if any of you do want to spend a bit of time designing, and then we can go back afterwards to the actual website again.
I wasn't here last week.
Yeah, that's okay. So what we'll do. Okay, that's all right. So what we'll do, I'll do a bit of a recap on what we did last week. There's not.
Sorry.
It's okay. What I'll do, I'll put a link in the chat now to the website that you need to go to. Okay. And then if you go to that website, I'll just give a bit of a recap, and then whilst everybody else is doing a task, we'll go through. I'll take you through what we need to do, so you can catch up from last week. Is that okay? Okay. Yeah, Jack, CodePen.io is spot on. I will. I'll get the. I'll get the URL so that you can. So there we go. There you go. So Caleb, if you want to go to that website, and then this is the website that we've been working from, okay? So I'll tell you where to go on the website now once I load it up on my screen. So I'm just going to do that, and hopefully you can all see can everybody see CodePen now? Okay. Okay. So when you go on to is the stream ended?
Yes.
Oh, on Discord. Okay, I'll change that. I will fix that. There you go. Hopefully you should be able to see that now. So when you head over to... It's back, yeah? Cool.
So I'm currently on like the
Homepage. Yeah. So do you see the button in the left corner that says create? Or it should say something like create. It's kind of got like multicolored...
start coding.
That's the one. If you click on that, you should get taken to a screen that looks a bit similar to mine, but it'll be empty. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So what I'll do, I'll just recap on last week now, and then we'll go through it together then, what we need to do so that you can get caught up, okay? Okay. So, what we did last week, for those of you who weren't there, and just to give a bit of a recap anyway, is we started building up a basic website. Okay, so all it is, I'll show the website here. It's just really simple. It's just text and one image. Okay, and just a bunch of headings and a couple of lists. So nothing too fancy. What we're going to be doing this week is we're just going to be adding a few bits to that. And then in addition, what we're going to do then is we're going to start designing the second page of our website. Okay, so what we'll do is I'll just give a quick recap on all of the HTML that we've got now, and then in a second, Caleb will work together to get you all caught up. Okay. Okay. So HTML websites use kind of like a HTML documents. Sorry, use a kind of like yeah, they use tags which are laid out in a nested kind of structure. Okay, so everything that's part of a particular section will be nested inside of it, and that's represented using indentation. Yeah, spot on. So everything that you need in this particular section is represented with indentation. So just working through the document now, of course we always start with the HTML tag, which tells the browser that everything in it is written in HTML. And then, as we discussed earlier, we have the head section, and that's just information about the website. So actually, Caleb, while I'm going through it, if you want to sort of if you want, you're free to kind of just copy what I've got, or I'll see if I can share this with you in a second, and then you can just edit my one if you want. Would that be okay? Yeah. Okay. So what I'll do in a second, I'll just go through all of this now, and then I'll share this pen with you in a second, and then you can just edit this one to make it how you want it. Okay. Save you having to type everything out again. So, as you know, we've got the head section, which is information about the website. It's stuff that doesn't appear on the actual web page. It's just information. So we have our character set, which is our library of characters that we're using. So, for an example, the main library that we use is UTF-8 because that now contains all of the special characters and things like that we need on a website. The title of the website is what would traditionally go in the tab bar. So when you open the website up in a browser, that's what your tab will be called. But because we're using CodePen, it bases it off of what your pen title is. Moving on then, once you've completed the head section, you will then have the body section, and this will be everything that's actually displayed on your website. So everything that's part of the body will be what's on your website. And then, of course, you've got a comment, which is represented using the quite strange tag of sort of like an opening tag, an exclamation mark, 2 dashes, whatever the comment is, and then you've got 2 dashes and a closing tag coming at the end. So it's a bit of a strange system for commenting, but that's just how comments work. So once you get into the body, you then have the header, and that's everything that's at the top of your page. So this will be where we later include the nav bar, and it's also where we would put the main title for the website. So I've got a H1 in there because that's my main heading. And then once you finish the header, you then move on to the main section, and this is the main part of your website. So it's everything that's after the header. And you can split your main section, your main part up into different sections. So I've got a section here, and if I scroll down a little bit, I've got another section here, and then I've also got an article here, and these are all separate sections of your website. Okay, so you can see that, Jack, you've started off. Well done, that's pretty good. And you've also started with CSS as well, which is pretty good. So that will be something that we're moving on to next week. But if you want to start adding CSS now, Jack, you can do. Feel free. So I've also included some H2s, which are kind of like subheadings. So I think it was Jack that put in the chat earlier that headings can go from H1 through to H6, and they kind of get smaller in size.
A fair bit of time ago, I did actually learn a bit of decent amount of HTML.
Oh, good. That's good. So you remember a lot of it already, which is good. All the basic stuff. Yeah, that's pretty good. So as I said, we've also got an image tag there, which has got all of our images in, paragraphs with p tags, etc., etc. So as a lot of you already know how all of this is kind of structured, so I won't spend too much time on it. But that's kind of the main body of the HTML. So Caleb, do you want me to share this with you, or do you want to build up your own? It's up to you how you want to do it.
So does everyone have the same as this?
Everybody's been working on their own one, so I can share you my one, and then you can edit it as you want to.
Does everyone have like the same like template with all the tags and stuff?
Everybody's been using all of the same tags, but they might be in sort of different places and things. So it's up to you how you would like to structure your website. This is just an example.
It's okay if I would like to like have a copy of it that I could see and
Yeah.
refer to for staff.
Yeah, of course you can. I'll just quickly share that with you now. Bear with me just a second. I will put a link to it in the chat in just a second. Just need to get that. View in. Oh, whoops. Sorry. Should be coming up in the Discord in just a second. Okay, there you go. So that's a link to my CodePen. Okay. So if you click on that, you should have the same, pretty much the same screen that I've got. Okay. So hopefully that's all. Has it worked? Okay. So the plan for this section of the club now is we're going to just go through a little bit more HTML things. and what we're going to do is we're just going to add in a few bits, and then we're going to have a chance then to move on to start designing the second part of our web page. Okay, so remember, if at any point anybody feels like I'm moving too quickly, just let me know, and we'll sort of, I'll slow things down. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to give my project a slightly different name. Okay, so I'm going to, because I want to have, what I'm going to end up with by the end of the sessions is lots of different pens representing all of the different pages for my website. What I'm going to do is I'm going to structure or organize my pens so that they're called what I want each one of my web pages to be called. Now, when you are designing a website, people will traditionally call the home page an index. Okay, so because this is eventually going to turn out to be my home page, I'm going to rename my TechnoCamp's project 1 section to index.html. Okay, now traditionally, in when you are doing, like I said, when you are doing web design, the home page is normally referred to as being the index, and so I'm going to rename it index.html because that's kind of how you go with. And then every other page then can be called pretty much whatever you want, but the home page is normally referred to as the index. So that's the first change that I'm going to make. It's just a small change, just to kind of get us on the same track, and it helps you keep it organized as well so that you can remember what each page is doing. So what I would like you all to kind of spend a little bit of time doing now, and again, this is we'll spend as much time on it as we need to, so don't there's no rush. I want you to start filling your website up with information about the topic that you've chosen. So as Andrew said earlier about it being on Wales, if you've chosen Wales, start filling up your website with information that's kind of relevant to your topic. So maybe you want to talk about, as I was saying, maybe a specific Welsh castle, or maybe you want to talk about maybe a beach in Wales or a village. So we'll spend a little bit of time now filling up your website with information about your topic. And as an additional challenge when you're doing that, see if you can add a footer to your website. So there's a footer normally on pretty much every website. So if I just quickly open the Visit Wales website, down on the bottom of the page, there's a very, very big section which normally contains links and things like that to other parts of the website or to external sites. So have a go at trying to include a footer in your website as like an optional challenge, and if you don't know how, we'll go through it afterwards, so don't worry. But yeah, that's your task for now, is to start putting some information into your website about your topic. Yeah, Jack, don't worry, try again. As I said, we'll spend a little bit of time now going through this. So just start filling it up, put a big header in there about your topic. Maybe if you can find a picture that you can include from the internet, just change the source tag. If there's like an uncopyrighted image that you want to use, stuff like that. Just to start filling up your website with information.
Do you mind if I ask a question?
Yeah, of course.
In your code, one of the tags is section class equals section 1.
Yeah.
What does that do?
Okay, so the class section, that is just something that I threw in there last week, and it's something that we'll be looking at more next week. So a class is how we can link our HTML document to our CSS document. So when you give something a class, it means that when you go into your CSS file and you want to edit that specific section, you put in its class name into the CSS document, and then that way the CSS file knows, oh, okay, I want to edit, say, this section or this paragraph or something like that. Okay, so you don't have to worry about that too much now. It's something that we'll look at more next week, but that's why it's there. Okay.
Are we going to be using the same website all the way through learning HTML?
We will be, yeah. So some people might want to use something like Visual Studio Code or a different website, but because CodePen is a sort of like a free online platform that everybody can access, we're just going to be making use of that. But don't feel like you've got to stick to it if you've got an alternative.
I think that after this lesson I'm going to swap over to Notepad.
Yeah.
That's fine. Just for
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, if you want to use Notepad or Notepad++ or something like that, then feel free. If you wanted to, the only problem with CodePen, of course, is that if you want to actually save your work, you have to make like you have to make an account with them, as you do with most websites. So if you would rather use a local bit of software that you've got on your machine, then yeah, that's absolutely fine. Oh, so Jack, do you mean for like commenting? Okay, so I will put it up on the screen now, Jack. So that is how you would comment in HTML. So it's the open bracket, open sort of tag, exclamation point, dash dash, and then the closing tag is dash dash closing tag, and then everything in between is the comment. And that's actually a good point that you've brought up there, Jack, about commenting as well. So it is really important that you comment your document throughout, just so that you can remember what each part is doing. Or say you wanted a section and you put it in there, but you didn't want to fill it just yet. You could just put a comment in there that sort of says, so for an example, maybe say I produce a new section down the bottom here, and I say section, and then I say, for an example, I might want to say this section will be about Carnarvon Castle or something like that. Yeah. So if you don't have time just yet to kind of fill in, to kind of fill a section in, you can just comment it for now, and then you can come back to it later. Yeah, that's fine, Liz. No worries. Take your time. There we go.
Have you got an idea of what you want to add to your webpage?
Well, I was just thinking about that now, actually. I'm trying to decide what to do my website on. And given that I did just put about Carnarvon Castle in here, I'm thinking maybe that's what I'll do my website on. So I'm going to start filling my website up now with a little bit of information while everybody else is working on theirs. And yeah, I think I'm going to do mine sort of on Carnarvon Castle.
So where would you start then? So you've got an idea now, so you're going to do Carnarvon Castle. What's the first thing you change?
First, so I'm going to work from the top down. So I'm going to start with the header section, make some changes there, then I'll move on to editing the different sections so that I can split it up so that different information can be found in different parts. So I'll work my way through it so that every section will eventually have a subheading so that it's clearly defined what each part is about. And then take it from there.
Go watch the Master Club.
I didn't know about that.
Hey, could we all just make sure the microphones are muted when we're not talking? Just get some background noise.
Thank you.
Andrew, surely you should mute yourself when you're not talking.
I do. I'm just thinking of what to say to Dan.
Both of you. You should also be muting yourself.
That's true. I'll mute myself. Hang on. Let me mute. I will mute myself.
Just joking around, by the way.
I know.
Okay.
But I should mute myself to stop myself from to stop the background noise.
Dan, what else would you put in the header eventually? So you've got the header there which just has Canal and Hassel. But what else would go in that section for the website?
So what I will eventually include, which will be something that we're looking at next week, is I would probably have a nav bar at that top part there in the header, so that there was easy navigation between pages located right at the top of the page. So that would be kind of...
What would you use to create the nav bar? Would it be one of the lists again?
Yeah, so it would be...
You could show that now. You could show it where you would place it now.
Yeah. So...
We've got the already. We've been through it.
Yeah, so I would have a there's a special tag called nav, and that tag is used to, as the name suggests, provide a navigation bar to the to your website. And then what I would do within that nav bar then, or those nav tag I should say, is I would then include an unordered list. An unordered list. So that I could have because unless you do have a purpose for including like an order to the links that you will have for each page, I'm just going to include an unordered list, and then of course individual list items. So I'd have an li, and then perhaps what I would do is I would have, I don't know, let's just say home, and then maybe I will have what can we say, maybe history, and then just as an example we might just say
The local area.
yeah, do that. So there you go, and then eventually
You'll notice Dan's like creating a list at the moment, but we're not putting in the links.
yeah, so currently the list is remaining just the nav bar, so to speak, is remaining just as a normal list. But one thing that we will do, which I can show you now actually while everybody's working on their website, is you can populate your links with actual hyperlinks to take you to other parts of your website. Now, unless anybody, I'm not sure if any of you, yeah, you could do Beemaris Castle, that's fine. So just as an example, I'm not quite sure, unless any of you have used, any of you have found a way of doing it, because I can't seem to find a way of having multiple pages in CodePen unless you create multiple pens and just link to those pens. It doesn't seem to me as if there's a way that you can actually do CodePen and have, say, several pages that are part of the same pen, unless anybody has got any suggestions on ways to do that. I am open to suggestions, but the way that I was going to do it was having several different pens.
Code pen projects.
Yeah, so I'd have several different code pen projects, and then I'll link those all together using their respective hyperlinks. If anybody has got any suggestions, then
That is my suggestion. I think you can do something called code pen projects, which allows you to file a system in there. But whether it's a feature, I don't know.
right.
Do you mind if I ask another question?
Of course.
I want to ask how, like, let's say that we're doing a website about how to teach HTML,
Mhm.
about HTML, and we wanted to, like, say, and we wanted to show the tag, like, the paragraph tag without it's like actually like
Ah,
happening.
that is a good question. I see. Yeah, I see what you mean. That is a good question. Let's have a look. Let me have a think. So you want to include a paragraph tag, sort of inside of a paragraph tag type thing, to show what it means.
Do a bit of Googling, but just search HTML special characters, and they will give you special code that you can put into your HTML, which will display those characters. So just Google HTML special characters, and you'll find a full list on Google. Hopefully that helps you, Bella.
Pardon?
Did you hear that? So if you Google HTML special characters, you'll get a list of all the special characters, which will allow you to put those HTML coding elements, or tags, into your paragraphs.
Jack, I can see you've put here, before I try updating my website, I put the code in CodePen. Okay, that's pretty good. So how do you resize a picture? Okay, so there are so there are two ways that you could essentially do that. So as Jack has put the link there to a photo editor, you can enhance the size of an image or decrease the size of an image using a photo editor. So when you put it on your website, it will then be either much larger, or it'll be much smaller. Or the alternative, as Chris has put, is you can adjust it using height and width, either as, like, say, an inline. I guess you could do it as an inline style, which we'll be looking at in a minute, or you can do it through CSS, which we'll be doing next week. So there are two choices. Okay. So just to kind of summarize the section on navbar. So what eventually we will have, of course, is a way of linking to other pages. How you decide to do it again is up to you. When you're editing in something like Visual Studio, what you would do is you would put the file name as kind of like a hyperlink in a way, and when they're all part of the same folder, when you're in a browser, it will recognize that they're all part of the same folder, and therefore it will link to them by going, okay, so now I'm moving on to this page, and now I'm moving on to this page. But you can, as a temporary basis, you can just provide a blank link to a web page. So for an example, in order to make something a link, we use something known as an anchor, which is represented by the letter A. And what you can do is you can you include the href, and then you would put, just as a temporary example, I'm just going to use the hash symbol, or the pound symbol. And then essentially what that says now, I'll just close it as well so that you can see how it looks properly. So we go /A. So what this has done, hopefully it will update, there you go, is the li, okay, that list item has now got a hyperlink associated with it. Now at the moment, when you put a a hash symbol or a pound sign in the between the double quotes, that just means it's a blank link, so it's not going to take you to anywhere, but you're still saying that eventually I'm going to fill this in with a specific website URL or a specific page reference to take me to a different place. And you can see that in my preview down at the bottom here, my home button has now become an actual hyperlink that I can click on, and it will eventually take me to a different place. And you can do that with all of your different LIs, so that eventually when you do have other sites set up, other pages set up, and you want to link them all together through however means you choose to do so, you can do it sort of that way. Help if I included the quotes, really, wouldn't it? There we go. /a.
Sometimes you can create a code pen project. You need an account first, and then you can have
Like a file structure. Okay, that's pretty good. So I can look at doing that in preparation for the rest of the project, so that we can have lots. And for those of you who are working on other pages as well, you can feel free to start a CodePen project so that you can get that built up and get a bit of a file system going as well. Okay. So you can see now that what has happened by giving each one of my list items in my navbar a href using an anchor, okay, which is that letter A here. What we've done is we've now said that that specific list item is eventually going to link to a different page or a different site or something like that, and that when you eventually have a link to a different page, you would populate that by putting it in the between the double quotes. So everything that goes between those double quotes will be the link. Can I change the text to icon image in the LI list? I suppose you could do, Jack. If you've got a website that will provide you with icons, I know there are a few free ones out there. You could just link to that website in the head. And then whatever, because normally the websites that give you icons, they will tell you what you need to include within the tags. So if you were to find a website that provides you with free icons, copy whatever tags it tells you to copy, and just replace this part here, whatever text is in there, with that, and that will then populate that list using the icon. So you should be able to do that. There you go. So Andrew has got an example of it there.
Is it okay if I use part of what's on screen for my HTML?
Well, that's on my screen now, you mean? Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can use what I've got. That's fine. Yeah. That's absolutely fine. So I'll just carry on adding a few bits and pieces to my page now. But if anybody does have questions or anything that they would like to share, like any advice or anything, just pop it in the chat.
The only thing I would say about using images is just bear in mind how they will change with different classes.
Yeah. So one thing that we will look at in a few weeks' time is this idea of different devices will display your website, will make your website look different. So I mentioned last week briefly about this idea of mobile first design. which is where most web developers will now base their websites around it being used on a mobile phone, because the vast majority of users now use mobile phones as their kind of main device for viewing a website. So as a result, a lot of developers will now build their website around this idea of using a mobile phone, and then they will develop it for PC because it's easier to scale something up than it is to try and scale something down. How do I add a picture from pixel art? I've never used pixel art before, so I'm not too sure.
Martin, do you get a link location for where the picture is? If you have a link location to, if you right click on the image and then copy that URL, you in theory should be able to paste that URL into the source of the image.
Yeah.
It would appear there. So, like Dan could show an example if he just did a Google search for any image. You can right click on that image and it will give the image location, the URL for that image where it's stored on the World Wide Web, and you can paste that into an image source.
So let's have a look at.
If you're downloading, you need to upload that picture onto CodePen. You can select it from there.
So there's.
The first method I was talking about there.
So there you go. So there's an example here of a image of Carnarvon Castle from Visit Snowdonia, and if you right click, there's normally a copy image address, and that will be the location of that image on the actual internet, on the web. So if you copy that, I'll just replace this example with the link, just to kind of give you a bit of an idea of how it would work. So instead of the placeholder, I will paste in that, and in theory, there you go. Let me just make it a bit bigger. You can see that image, bit fuzzy, but it's there. It then appears on the website. It's really, really big, but it's still there nonetheless. So it just tells you to download. So Martin, have you edited it? Have you edited the image at all? Ah, you have. Okay. So it might be a bit trickier to get that image online if you've edited it if you need to download it and save it locally. Does it give you a choice of, if you right click on it, does it give you like an image address, or does it just ask you to download it?
If you click on assets in the bottom left corner,
Yes.
can you upload an asset there?
It's a pro feature. Yeah. If you're editing locally, and you're using a local editor like VS Code, then you could that would be easy enough. Just ask you to download it. Okay. So it might be slightly tricky then if you're using CodePen to get it up there because you're editing it locally. But if you are because you're editing it and you'd have to download it and save it locally. But if you are using a local editor, then it would be a bit easier. You could copy and paste what you've got on CodePen into a local editor like Notepad, and then what you would do is you just need to put the image, like the file for the image, which I could find you an example of in a second, in the source section, and then what that would then do is if you save that Notepad file as index.html, you'd be able to open that in a browser, and it should then load the image up from where you've saved it locally. So I'll just get you an example of what I mean by the file path. If you bear with me just a second. Okay, let's find an example here. This one might be no good. Just see if I can get an example.
Martin, are you able to find a similar image which is already posted online? So you could just search in Google Images. Could you find something similar? And then you could use the first method that I'm showing.
Yeah.
A bit more complicated because of code and limitations in this area.
Yeah, that's the only problem. I'm just seeing if I can find an example for you of
What kind of example are you looking for now?
just like to show how a file path would work for an image tag if you were.
So if you were using a local file file system, I will just type how it would kind of look.
Yeah, that's it.
Now, you would have this kind of system here. So using those, you will be able to go back into the files to find the location. Let's say, for instance, if it was in a file called the dot slash means you're going backwards. Then you could find a file or a folder called photos, and in that folder you could have the image. So it would look. So you would have to go searching through using that kind of method.
Yeah, that's exactly that. Yeah, that's exactly what I was after, Andrew.
So that's how you organize it. So the photos is the folder, the image is the file, and the dot dash means you're going backwards. If it was you had it directly in the same folder, you would be as simple as just say image.png.
Mhm. That's it.
It depends if you're doing it locally on a folder file system. That's the method you would use. If we're just finding images online, we would put the URL link to that image because it's already posted online. So every time we refresh the page, we're pulling an external resource essentially from our website, bringing that resource onto the website. And hopefully that's clear in some aspects.
I can see, Martin, that you've said it's because of how big the image is that you need to change it. So essentially, the choices that you'd have there would be to, if you do download it and save it locally, you could switch to using something like Notepad to build up your HTML document. But alternatively, you would just have to see if you can find a slightly smaller, similar image on the website, or if you wanted to, you could leave it. You could put it in there now, just by copying the URL of the image, leave it as being really, really big, and then when we look at CSS next week, we can see if we can shrink it down a little bit using CSS instead. So that would be slightly easier than having to transfer everything to being stored on locally. I know it might look really gigantic, but yeah, there you go. So we can change the size of it using CSS by using height and width and stuff.
How's everyone's website starting to look at informing some kind of information about the local area of Wales or castles? Something to share?
What we want it to be about.
Yeah, if you've done it about HTML, it's fine. Do you want to start sharing what you've got so far, just to give an idea of where you're at? How's your website looking, Dan?
I've made no progress, as I'm sure you can see, but it will get there. So what did I want to put here? I had an idea of what I wanted to put here as well, and I've forgotten what it is now. I was going to put a nice heading. What was the heading going to be? We'll just say, we'll just call it welcome for now. And then maybe I will just include the URL from where do I want it? There we are. I'm going to I'm going to change my placeholder image to being the really big image of Carnarvon Castle, and then we can deal with the size of it next week. But I also want to just tidy up my image because it's very, very long. We'll just leave it like that for now.
That's just the link to the image. But there is an error with what you've written. Anyone has to spot the error.
Can anybody spot the error? I think I have seen the error. I've seen the error. Can anybody tell me where I'm going wrong?
Something with that image tag.
I'll highlight that. I've seen the error. Does anybody know what's wrong with that? I know it's really long.
Have you got one of those like I'm missing angled brackets, perhaps?
Not quite. Not quite.
Okay, so if I'm sort of focusing or something.
That's alright. No, it's fine. Good try, though. So, what I've missed here are the quotes. So, everything that's a source. So, as I mentioned last week, some modern browsers will compensate for that, but a lot of older browsers won't, so it's important that little errors like forgetting quotes or not closing your tags, you know, it can impact your entire website if you're using an older browser. So I'd forgotten to put the quotes here, so anything that's a source or anything that's considered to be a href, as you can see here, that is that they need to be in quotes, to kind of double quotes to represent that they are a link to something in a way. So I'm just going to carry on. So what we'll do, there isn't really a lot of different elements of HTML that we really need to add. But what I'm going to do in around 5 minutes is I'm going to cover just a few little things that you can do on your HTML documents to kind of tidy them up a little bit, and to add a couple of bits of features. And then whilst I'm talking, you feel free to just carry on working on your website designs to make them look and adding information to them. But we'll go over that in about 5 minutes time. But for now, we'll just carry on filling our websites up with different bits of information.
Can I ask how like if I like decide to transition to working on Notepad and I want to put an image in that's on my computer.
Mm-hmm.
How would I do that?
So you mean that when you load the website on a browser, the image will come up that you've got, and did you say that the image that you want, is it saved locally on your computer? Yeah. Okay. So that would follow the things that Andrew put in the chat a little bit further up. So Andrew's just copied it now. So is the image saved in the same folder as your Notepad file? Saved in the same place. Okay. So what you would do is you need to include this tag, and then inside of the double quotes would just be the name.
But it's not an image, it's a hyperlink.
Oh, so is it a hyperlink to an image that you've had from the internet?
Hyperlink to an image that I have on my computer. Is that even possible?
Well,
Colin, is the image itself stored in the folder, or is it an image online?
It's an image stored in my folder there.
Okay. Is it in the same folder as the website?
You know, it's fine. I'll do something different.
No, no, that's right. So that's the right way of doing it. So if the image and the HTML file are in the same folder, if you look in the chat, that's the tags you would use. So you'd have image source equals, and wherever it goes
It's fine.
G, that would be the name of the image file.
Don't worry, it's fine.
it's okay. If you do want, if there's, if you find a different, if you want to do it a different way, of, if you want some help, just let us know. So, okay, that's fine. I will just carry on adding some bits and pieces. We'll just say.
Chris, if you right click on this website and select elements, you might be able to find solutions.
There we go.
When Fall Guy falls, I don't know. I haven't played Among Us. So crazy how similar the characters from Among Us and Fall Guys look.
Oh, are they really similar? I mean, I'll be honest, I've not played either at the moment. I do want to play.
I haven't played either, but I have seen it's all over.
Okay. I've been watching some people play Fall Guys.
Guy when he falls, I don't know. I haven't played there.
Okay. So I've not got very far with adding any information to my website, but what I'm going to do now. So if you want to carry on just adding information, that's absolutely fine. You can carry on just kind of adding and building up your website. But I'm just going to add a couple of different things to my website now that you might find useful as you're building up your own website. Okay. So I'm just going to start with one or two tags that you may. That's okay, Caleb. Don't worry. So you might find one or two tags of these tags useful as you're going through. Some of these are things that you can edit in CSS. So if you get to CSS next week, you can actually remove these tags and edit them in CSS, which is something that I recommend that you do. However, for the time being, what we're going to do is we're going to add some things which might be useful now until we get to a point where CSS is where we look at CSS. So first thing I'm going to include are some inline styles. Okay, now inline styles, aren't always recommended for reasons that I will go through next week. But because we haven't yet got to a stage where we're looking at CSS, I'm going to include some inline styles in my website now. And the purpose of an inline style is it allows you to alter something like, for an example, your text color or your font size or anything like that, or the background color of something, without actually having to include it in a CSS document. Okay, so I'm going to just alter one of my paragraphs. So I'll alter this one that I've written about welcome to this unofficial Carnarvon Castle website. So inside of the P tag, okay, I'm going to use a keyword or an attribute of the P tag called style, and then I'm going to say equals, and then for an example, let's just say I wanted to change the color of that paragraph to being, I don't know, let's just say green. I can put in the double quotes, I can say color, spell in the American spelling, so no U, okay, so just COLOR, and then I'd put a colon, and then I would say green, and I'd terminate the line with a semicolon. And if I scroll down, you can see now that that bit of text has now changed to being green. Okay, so it will alter how your text looks. Okay, it might be that for a certain section, so let's just say for this list, I want it to have a red background. Okay, I want my whole list to have a red background. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to use another keyword style here. Okay, and a colon. An equal sign. I'm going to have double quotes, and I'm going to say background dash color, another colon, and then let's just say I want it to be red. I would say red, semicolon at the end there, and you'll see now that the background color is red. Now what you can see is that it's not confined the background color to just the list points, but it's actually taken up 100% the width of the screen. And the reason that it does this is because if you picture every single one of these tags, okay, within your website, think of it as kind of like a box. Okay, the boxes are kind of stacked up one on top of the other, and they take up the full width of your screen. Now when we get to looking at CSS, there is a simple way that we can just adjust the sizes of things so that they don't take up 100% the width of the screen. However, for the time being, these every single one of these boxes, so to speak, takes up 100% the width of the screen, which is why currently the red fills up the entire screen. Okay, but we'll look at ways in which we can adjust that when we start looking at CSS. So another thing that you might want to do is adjust the fonts, for example, to being in bold or being in italics. So there are tags that you can use to do this if you wanted to do it in line. Okay, so let's just say I want my what can we use? Let's just say so if we use the same green text that we used before, let's just say I want it to also be in italics, for an example. You can use the I tag. Whoops. So when you use the I tag, also make sure that you close that I tag as well. It will change that font to being in italics. and let's just say we want a paragraph to be in bold, you can use the B tag and it'll make it bold. Now these again are all things that we can include in the CSS file, and it is, in some instances, it is more recommended that you use the CSS file as a way of altering the appearance of your website and things like that, because it's as we'll learn next week, it's all about things like what's known as specificity, which is where some things will be overridden by other things, and you don't really want that to be happening. So that is why we tend to use CSS to edit our files and not inline styles, because inline styles will take a greater precedence over CSS, which means when you try and alter something in a CSS file, if you've included an inline style, the inline style will just override it. So that's why. Okay. No, the whole no. So you wouldn't have to bold the entire paragraph. You could just cut it short. So let's just say we wanted the word welcome to being in bold. You could just put the open and closing tags at the start. Let's scroll down. So it is slightly. Let's have a look. Ah, so it has bolded the whole thing as well. That's strange. Shouldn't have done. Should have just changed the Oh no, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one. Silly me. Yeah, sorry. So you can see there that it has just changed the welcome to being in italics and not the whole paragraph. Yeah, sorry, I was looking at the wrong thing there. The whole thing isn't in italics anymore, just the word welcome. So you're not confined to just having to change the whole thing. Just the first part if you want to, or just random words if you wanted to as well. It's entirely up to you how you do it. And another tag that you could make use of, which I don't believe is something that you can do in CSS. There might be a way of doing it, but if you want to, for an example, say you have a very long paragraph but you want it to appear on separate lines, you can use something known as a line break, okay, which is represented using the BR tag. So let's just say, for an example, I want to split up this sentence into being on multiple lines. So maybe I say this website will teach you all you need to know about, and then I want this part to be on a separate line. You can put at the end of where you want the sentence to break, you can put a BR tag, wait for it to load, and you can see now that it's split that sentence up onto separate lines. So instead of it being all on one line, it's now on two separate lines. So that is how you can sort of restructure your sentences if you want to, so that instead of it being all on one line, it's now on separate lines. So that's another way that you can do it. So those are just two. Those are just a few examples of some bits and pieces that you can do to sort of alter the appearance of your website, but using just the HTML and not CSS. CSS will give you so much more access and so much more flexibility to some of the different styling elements that you can do on a website. So there are some people who will build websites with just HTML and CSS, and they won't even include any JavaScript, because the CSS can be a really, really powerful tool that enables you to change so many different parts of your website, and not just to add to the HTML, so to speak. So the plan for the rest of today's session now, so we're coming up to the last 20 odd minutes or so, what we would like you to do is Well, there are two choices really as to what you can do. So you can either continue to populate your main homepage with different bits of information, okay, about your chosen topic, or alternatively, you can start working on a second page. So it doesn't matter what page that might be. So for an example, I've got my links here, home, history, local area. Okay, you could have as many additional pages as you want. So the choices are you can either start working on that second page now, or as an alternative, you can just carry on filling up your main page and you can start working on a second page at another time. It's entirely up to you how the order in which you do it. So Andrew and I will be on here to give you a hand as much as you need it. Okay. If you have any questions that you want to ask us, or if you want to share any tips with each other, feel free to do so. But that's everything that we're going to cover today. So feel free to ask questions and feel free to just carry on working on things. And Andrew and I will be around until 6 o'clock for you to ask any questions that you like. Okay. So here's navbar. We'll look at doing that again. What I'll do actually for you, Tiz. So I've got the code on the screen now. Oops. If I could get Google Chrome to actually work. On the screen now, Chris, is the code for the nav bar. So that will display it like it does on my screen there. And then all you would need to then do is change the hash symbol to being if you're editing locally, it'll be the name of the file that you are that your other pages will be what they're called. If you're editing it on CodePen, then you could either, as Andrew suggested earlier, you could start a project and have a file structure, or you could have them. You could provide links to separate pens that will all link them together. How do you make them go into a line? Okay, so going into a line is something that you would do with CSS. Yeah, as Andrew said, it's CSS magic. I can. So the code that you would need, I'll give you the code now, so that way you can see it. But I'm going to just give this URL. So again, for those of you who are unfamiliar with CSS and things, don't worry too much about it now. But what I'm going to do is just use this as an example. and we'll go through this properly again next week, but what we can do is say display inline. Should hopefully do it, maybe. Or not. Yeah, so it should be display inline. Not quite sure why.
Have you do you need to create a link with CodePen to the CSS file? I'm not sure how that works.
No, it should just, in theory, it should just pick it up. It's a bit weird that it's not doing the... because it was doing it on my other example. Hang on. There's got to be a reason why here. Let's have a bit... let's...
Be a hashtag instead of a dot.
No, so the dot is there for when you are telling the CSS file what class you're referring to. So if you've given it a class, you would say dot main menu. But if you were just referring to the list, you would say ul display inline, and then it would just display them in line. But for some reason, I don't know why it's not doing it. It's very strange. Let me take a quick look at the other pen that I've got for us for next week, and we'll have a look there at why. So very bright, this website. So you can see that I've got a little bit of so the okay, so let's try it a different way. So let's say, instead of saying dot main menu, we'll say dot main menu li. There you go. Okay, so yeah, no worries. Thank you for joining. So for this, if you change, if you give it a class, say whatever you want to call it, like I've called mine main menu. If you then say dot main menu li, so you're referring to the main menu list and each individual list item, and then say display in line, that then should put them in line. Did that work?
And Dan, could you, rather than creating a class,
Mm.
you specifically choose it? What if you just had now?
Yeah, you could also do, if you said,
Yeah, I think to remove.
you could just say nav li, that would work as well. So if you're planning on having multiple, you should really, I guess, only have one nav per se on the top of your home page, as your kind of like main kind of go-to points for navigating across the website. So if you just say nav li, that works. Or you could say give it a class and then refer to the class with the dot class name li, and that will then also do it. So that's just a bit of CSS magic, as Andrew said. The other thing I realise I haven't yet mentioned is about the footer. So for those of you who haven't, who did include a footer on the website, the way that you would do that is you would include the footer tag. So that would come inside of the main before the end of a section. You could put, let's just make this a bit bigger for you all to see. There we go. So I would say in here, before the end of the main, I could say something like footer, and then in the footer I could just say this is a footer slash footer, do it like that.
You would probably have a type of list again. You probably could copy and paste your list down.
Yeah.
Because the list would be your social media links, usually is what's in the footer of the web page. But what's going to happen here now is if Dan uses the UL and the nav, all of that together, navigation, I
Mm-hmm.
guess.
Yeah.
Take the same structure as your nav bar and the header. So you could separate it then is by using your CSS to specifically select the header rather than the header handle.
Yeah.
So in CSS now, if you scroll up, see there it's got footer nav UL, so you see the structure of your HTML goes up to the header. And it will be the same format. You've got header, nav, UL, li. So in the CSS, you can specifically say what's in the header, that's in the nav, which is a list, takes this style format that we're creating here.
Help if I could spell, really, wouldn't it?
Typos.
So if we use an example, let's just say the header nav li, let's just change the color to being green. So let it refresh. So okay, it's because they're so it's because they're hyperlinked. So they like to display themselves in different colors, because they're links. So what can we use as an example? Let's say text decoration.
You need to create a second one then and have header nav list page or just header nav page. And then
Yeah. Yeah. So you could, So you could, yeah. You're right, Andrew. That's a good point. Let me just copy and paste that, and then we'll change that to header nav a, and then let's just remove the underline. So text decoration, I think it's none. There you go. Yeah. So now you can see that it's removed the underline. Whereas if I go down to the bottom, you can see that because I've not said footer nav a, they're still all underlined. So that's just a little bit of an introduction for you there to how stuff in CSS works. But we'll be looking at that a bit more next week. So you'll be able to style your web pages a little bit more. So hopefully that makes sense. So if you have made a bit of a project file up, then one thing that you could do now is tick off what parts you've included, so that way you can keep track of that, so that you know next time when you are coming back to this next week, and we start looking at CSS in a little bit more detail. No worries, Jack. Thank you for joining. You can tick things off so that you remember where you were up to when we come back to it next week. See you later, Jack. Thank you again for joining. So next week, what we'll be doing, we'll be back usual time, 4 till 6. And what we're going to be doing next week is we're going to be looking at CSS. We're going to start looking at CSS. We're going to start adding a few more design details to our website, and we're going to start making things look a little bit better, because inline styles are much more faffy than what a CSS file is. Okay, and eventually, come next week, it looks a little bit confusing now, but you'll see that CSS is much easier overall when you are styling your website than what an inline style is. So as Andrew said, don't worry if you don't quite understand it now, because we'll be going over it next week so that things become a bit clearer. So last few minutes of the session now before we wrap up. Does anybody have any questions that they would like to ask, or does anybody have anything that they want to share before we finish up today? Yeah, so you had no, so you had to use inline styles. Yeah, inline styles, they're fine. To a certain extent, inline styles can become a bit of a nuisance over time because of the uh, again, like I mentioned earlier, something called their specificity, which means that they are. Um, it essentially means that when you are trying to edit something in a CSS file, when you go and try and edit a specific section using CSS, it means that when you go back to try and edit it, if it's already been styled using an inline style, that inline style will override the CSS, meaning that you're not actually able to edit it. And inline styles, they're not really used much anymore for that reason. Let's have a look at this. Oh, that's fantastic. That's coming along really nicely. Um, Well done. Yeah, that looks great. Much better than mine. So looking really, really good. Well done. Yeah, well done.
You've done a really good job of incorporating all the aspects that we've covered in the last two sessions. That's really nice.
Yeah,
Hopefully, as we bring in CSS,
yeah.
even nicer.
Mhm.
That's the right word to use.
That's fantastic.
Really good.
Mhm. Well done. Okay. So if nobody has any other questions to ask, sorry, we'll wrap things up there for today. As we're coming up to 6 o'clock now. So, big thank you again for joining in this week. I hope that you all enjoyed it. Um, you know, again, providing that it doesn't interfere with your homework time, feel free to, of course, work on your websites in your own time as well. Obviously, prioritize your schoolwork first, but if you do have some free time, then definitely spend some time having a go on your websites. Google some things, make a list of questions if you want to ask us anything, and we'll do our best to answer them next week, or put them in the Discord if you have any questions during the week. But other than that, I hope you all have a good week. I hope you all have a good week in school, and enjoy the rest of your week. So thank you very much, everyone. I'm going to stop the stream now and move back into Techno Team. So I'll speak to you all next week.
I'll just add on to that. Just
Mhm.
if you have a look at other websites and you think that looks quite cool, I want to incorporate something like that. Bring those to these sessions. Me and Dan can have a look outside of the session today and incorporate it into part of the learning flow and things you want to learn about as well.
Yeah,
We have
absolutely.
to figure out where it's going, but we can change that depending on what you want.
Yeah. So as I mentioned before, these sessions are all for you. They are, they're designed for you to, to learn about what you want to learn about. So if there are things that you would like to learn, then just tell us. Of course, at the moment, within the context of HTML or web design. But if any of you do find anything and you like and you want us to kind of look into how that would work and how you could put that on your website, then let us know, and we'll do our best to help you all out. That's pretty cool. It is Jack even. It's pretty cool. Okay, so we'll wrap everything up there. Again, like I said, thank you very much, everybody. Did you have anything else that you wanted to add, Andrew? Or
No, thank you everyone for joining, and hopefully we'll see you all again next week for starting our CSS journey.
yeah, okay. So